So for Traverse Town, it is definitely a mellow and generally more simplistic world in terms of its art style. Now, in saying that, it is unbelievably consistent. Most areas, apart from the clock tower, which you'll see later, fit everything so well. So I'm just going to walk around as a little bit of a refresher, and there's an interesting thing I found about the cafe chairs in vanilla. Now, if you look towards the highlight, it almost looks like there's a subtle Easter egg of some sort of clown. Now, I can point towards an external software to make this stand out much more easily for you guys as viewers. So where I've made that red ring around, specifically here, that is exactly where you want to look for. And it's such a bizarre, maybe a glitch, I'm unsure, part of the vanilla textures. Now the pack I am going to be working on will not be possible without someone who's gone out of their way to make an upscaled version of these vanilla textures. So I'll point you guys towards them on the PCS X2 emulator, someone named CurseForge. So instead of working with native texture sizes, which I have done so in the past, I've now got so much more freedom. Most things that he has upscaled easily doubles or triples that resolution. Now, in saying that, some of his upscaled vanilla textures appear to be usable on the PC version as well. So you can definitely see the vibe that the developers were going for, and hopefully this will really set out the differences once I re-walk through on my custom workings. And some areas are very, very frustrating to do work on. For example, this item shop over here, I likely will not go in here for a very long time because one way the PS2 would save on resources and fake shadows is these are manually done and are not casted from the object. Now the walls inside this store, underneath every painting and every post, has a painted shadow instead of a simulated one, which is fantastic, but that means every single panel just about of this item shop has its own texture and you have to color match it. You can imagine the insane amount of work that would go towards that. And one other thing that's in vanilla is lots and lots of tiling. So it is pretty much uniform between each scene. Now that can be a real delicate thing to work towards, and hopefully I can balance it very well. So I'm going to return to the same point and in 1 second switch over to my custom pack so it's clear when I talk about tiling. Imagine this is one large surface. It's a single texture and just stacked on top of each other continuously. Now the challenge is making these seem flawless and uniform. I'll just merge them together. It's very easy for the developers who have much experience with this to make that look perfect. When I do work, it's a weak spot. So some things will stand out immediately as placeholders, and this will take a long time to get to the standards I would like to. For example, the command bar is halfway done at the moment, these rocks here, and also Sora's new outfit. And off the bat, I have done some recolors and also complete redos. I'll get to them in a moment. So I've added a very subtle little moss going along the cobblestone paths and also plants growing in between them. Now here in my pack, this is the best example of tiling you'll get. Now to draw these very random, all these plants, will take very specific placement. And the smear tool actually carries this. You can't actually notice to an extent that this is mainly just pixel drawn lines. And even small things like chairs that you would realistically walk past, I'm trying to do. And eventually, once I find how to scale the resolution correctly, I'll even add utensils and a menu up in this cafe window. So the law of Traverse Town is pretty much an in-between land where other people, like all these characters in the background, their worlds are being destroyed and they ended up here. So I hope I can bring that sort of theme to this world. For example, with this mailbox, which is obviously very Western. And the doors surprisingly change the feeling of a world heaps. So this is stained glass, and I do acknowledge there are some texture glitches, but everything is due to be reworked a few times over till I'm satisfied with them. And I've even made attempts at faking a proper window which has transparency. So in this texture is actually just a screenshot and low resolution. I found Sid's shop particularly to have the biggest vibe shift in the first district by far. So once more, this is a work in progress. I'm going to slowly add more chiseling all across this furnace and make this wood look more natural. So on this backboard here, I tried to make it look like it was carved, and it will be a very big project to finish. And even things like the background of this jewelry display, that whole night sky thing is completely redone by me. So I don't necessarily have to change a lot for the whole feeling of an area to start shifting quite a large amount. So up here always caught me off guard with how different I made it look just by painting a new door texture, some waterfalls. It completely uplifts and adds such more variety and color, which to some extent is needed. It's a good refresher for those who have played this game for many, many years. And once more, adding to the randomness, why not add a ticket booth in here? It's worlds connected. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense. Now, I haven't noticed this till I started working on this pack. There's actually a face in this wall. I've walked past this hundreds of times before I added this little ticket booth without even making that connection that there's a face there. So small things are also in the game by itself. And since the Heartless has came to this world, it's become very sleepy and very mellow, with basically no activity going on. You can see a remnant of a basic society showing up. And the doors and windows, they're also uniform to this one sort of feeling it should give you based off the soundtrack. I almost had this inkling that the world came second and the composers made their soundtracks first, because it is so well crafted. It fits the vibe to the T. Now, in saying that, what I aim to bring to Traverse Town in all districts is this sense of life, even though characters are pretty much absent. And some of the textures here were actually brought from the native textures I had done about 6 months ago. So this one, I'm just waiting to upscale, because in the pack, and of course you can't expect them to get every single texture. It's a lot of work. There's just some that slip through the cracks. And in the shopping area, I'm progressively working on even the clothes and the shoes will become unique, like this jacket, even if there is a little bit of a glitch up towards the left side of the collar, the shirt, and even something simple like this. Now, you'll walk past this without likely noticing. This little grate inside is redone by me. And once more, you've got some things that are clearly work in progress. So I'm hoping that the metal framing and art will really suit the new window style of this hotel. So from a distance, I'll walk away and show you. Just changing something as basic as a window really shifts the vibe of an area humongously. And the left and right still has much work left to do on it. And I'm trying to use some straight up digital art pieces incorporated into the pack, like this mantis over here, and even random aspects of nature coming into the second district, like these pots. Now, attempting to do proper stained glass and have it work is immensely challenging. So these will definitely need to be redone more times than I would like. Getting this to sit perfectly has been such a great challenge. All the line work, you need to have it at a very certain sharpness. And that can be a very big barrier for me. Trying to find in which ways I can add lines that don't look kind of jittery from a distance like this. So I'll pop through into the hotel. Now this is somewhere, especially as kids, we would have ran inside, outside, over and over trying to get that Donald and Goofy to actually spawn. And despite that, the art style is pretty basic. I'm not ragging on the devs at all. You've got to pump the game out, and random little walls that everyone constantly sees isn't really necessary. So when I switch, hopefully you can see how much I completely made alterations. And one thing you will find quite often is textures. So like this back wall over here won't be unique to this specific region. Inside, I think it's Milan's inspired room, the red dragon, I can't remember the name. In here, all walls follow along this backboard. So it's one way they would end up saving space. And also, all of these grainy pixels can somewhat sell detail when there is a complete lack of. And that's another theme with the textures even at native resolution too. So I tried to add a bunch of light sources following through up this backboard. Now, I'm hoping that I can incorporate my pieces that I've done outside of the game for my own recreation to work properly. But sometimes the way a texture will map or lay on an object is very finicky. So a lot of textures are actually seamlessly placed together. Rather than one large image, which would take up heaps of space, they would use a smaller one and just repeat over and over and over. Now in here, I'm most happy with this desert themed wallpaper. Now others, you can definitely see the vibe is there. The work isn't done, of course, for this. Or the biggest placeholder in the whole hotel is this room here. So just because I spoke about it earlier, I'll pop my head in one moment. And I'm doing this on mouse and keyboard, it's very clunky, don't mind me. All in here will be very awkward because I'm trying to theme the outside, the roof, while also trying to theme in here and make it consistent and actually make sense. The green room will have so much work redone. The only thing I've done so far is just things like this bushwork and also wood paneling on the back wall. So the lighting and the colors just work unbelievably well in vanilla. They obviously follow a very strict sort of rule. Now, here, in all honesty, has been my biggest challenge to color well and have everything actually fit one singular vibe. I found in my work so far, there's a lot of mixture going on, and it's hard to identify if that's necessarily a good thing. So everything you'll be seeing in a moment is likely due to be reworked a number of times. I've got a whole game ahead of me, and I've found working in Traverse Town for quite a long time now has been very monotonous, and I need variety. So what's up next, and it will take an immense amount of time, will be Destiny Islands. So hopefully in about 2-3 weeks, I'll have done enough, even if it's not 100% complete, enough texture work that stands out and you get a good reference. Now, one thing I should mention is, although I do art here and there, I'm not necessarily an artist, so some standards, I'm being realistic and transparent, might not be A+. Obviously up the top, that banner is a massive placeholder, but please don't hope to get the whole game this massive remastered, complete overworked HD perfection. I'll slowly rebuild and make things cleaner and cleaner with time, but for quite a long span, you'll see things that the vibe is there, the work isn't fully complete. So I've done some meta work over here, and you'll get to see an example of challenges with texture work, especially for someone relatively inexperienced. So the way it tiles into this larger area, you'll get an anomaly or part of a texture that really shouldn't appear, like this small chunk of the circle hanging out to the left. I did not draw that. Also, this quarter of a fishtail was not intentionally placed by me. It's just the way the texture fits onto these objects in the world. So that tiling of the same small thing over and over, perfect reference there, where it becomes a massive pain. Now, even the doors up here, I'm going to try and theme as best as I can. So there's some saloon doors. The light is obviously a quick dirty job, just to give you a good idea of what it could look like. And this is also heavily based on Banded Sweep. Those ones I drew on the hallway outside. Now hopefully, when I come back to this texture in the future, I can make the body more proportionate and the diver actually fit in more naturally to this door right here. Although it was never mentioned, I do like to think of this for some reason as a big event thing where people would come here to dance and host all sorts of events. So this tiling floor is genuinely, it's not even a square texture, it's rectangle. It is this here and this here. This is the whole thing. So making these sit perfectly, when they're diagonal, you can see where the challenge comes from, trying to make them line up, because these will not sit evenly with each other. Now luckily, back here, there's not too much going on. I'm going to hopefully learn to rework animations as well, and possibly, with so much challenge, make the lighting up here pop so much more. And one day there is the next animation, which I want to work on, is this, and possibly aim to make it a little bit more realistic. Now, a big boss fight is done here, but when I switch to my custom work, I have not tested that in that variant of this room. And this will be another one that just takes an absolute millennium, is manually placing and adding correct lighting to a bunch of bricks underneath this area. Luckily though, this marble, it was preset, I barely had to do any work, drag and drop. Now here, they are also done on a diagonal line rather than perfectly straight down this way. So trying to get it symmetrical, I'm complaining about it a lot because it drove me absolutely AWOL. Anyway, I'll try and walk past and not indulge in that. Hopefully, my aim is to have this appear so much more metallic. And in this fountain, I'm going to try and find ways to combine a bunch of different images to somewhat hide the fact that this is Lady and the Tramp as up here. So the first thing that comes to mind, so much effort, I gave it a couple goes, is putting Dumbo and maybe the Stork and a few other Disney characters inside of here. But the problem is, if the texture goes outside of this silhouette, it breaks. So it's almost like I need 100 relatively small characters blotted over there. And in the star, it's the startings of making a portal and a door that is absolutely nowhere close to done. Now I think I've covered just about everything I've done in this world specifically. So once more, none of my work would be possible at all without Curse Arms on his own pack upscaling the game. Now in the past, on the native resolutions, I have done a lot of work. I got all the way to 4 worlds to almost to completion. But I found working with things that are 128 pixels and cramming details mind-numbing. It was so frustrating. If you would like, I can show you some of my old works. Just know, with all the challenges I had, the things that you see in here will not make that standard. Now, hopefully, since I've got so much more freedom, I can actually draw details. I can actually have things that look like wood grain working well. I'll make it so much further, and I'll try and actually put up consistent updates instead of doing 2 worlds, forgetting about you guys, doing my stuff in the background. Cheers for watching. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. If there's anything artistic, please use simple language. Although some of my things look alright, I don't have the greatest understanding on how to make things really clean looking.